Usman or Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, descent from an aristocratic family, played a huge role in his decision as Caliph. The Umayyad had ample experience in administration dating back to the days before Islam, and Hazarat Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu relied on the experience in his personal decision. His cousin Muawiyah was already the governor of Syria and was doing an admirable job in transitioning the province from frontier territory to the backbone of the Muslim state. Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu proceeded to appoint his foster brother Abdullah ibn Sa'd as a governor of Egypt, hoping that Umayyad lineage would serve Egypt as well it did Syria. Other cousins of his were appointed in Iraq, where they led raids into the Persian homeland, slowly conquering the rest of the Sassanid Empire. There were some allegations of nepotism for the first time in Islamic history, although they do not seem to have been serious enough to hamper the efforts and capabilities of the expanding Muslim state. Continuing in the footsteps of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu and his emphasis on the military, Hazrat Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu ordered the construction of the first naval fleet in Muslim history, intended to thwart any Byzantine counter-attacks. Governors in Syria and Egypt relied heavily on the expertise of the local Christians in building seafaring vessels. Christians who had formerly been under the sovereignty of the Byzantine Empire seem to have showed enthusiasm in their work for their new Arab governors, especially considering that many of them belonged Coptic Church and other Christian domination that were not recognized by the Byzantines. The Muslims' willingness to treat them better than the Byzantines must have played a huge role in their loyalty to the Caliphate. The result of this was peaceful civil society and security from external threats, as the Byzantine fleet attempting to recapture Alexandria in 646 was thwarted by Christian sailors in the employ of the Caliphate. So besides simply defending its borders, the Muslim Empire was able to expand its influence in the Mediterranean, capturing Cyprus and raiding as far as Sicily. Military success also continued on land as Muawiyah led his powerful Syrian army into Armenia against Byzantine rule. The mountain terrains of Anatolia, coupled with its mainly Greek population, meant a natural border between the Byzantine and the Muslims developed around the modern border of Turkey and Syria. Further east, Muslim armies continued to push into the Persian heartland under the command of another of Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's relatives, Abdullah ibn Amir. The conquest of the rest of the Sassanid Empire was not as rapid as the conquest of Iraq. There the society was more homogeneous and connected to the Sassanid government. As a result, the war exacted a behavior toll on the Muslim armies. Still, the completeness of the Muslim victory at the Qadisiyah during the Caliphate of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu had essentially sealed the fate of the Sassanid Empire. It was simply a matter of time and effort to subdue the rest of the empire. Sassanid Emperor Yazdegerd was never able to fully replace the army he lost in 642. And over the following 10 years, the Sassanids were constantly on the defensive. By 650, the Iranian plateau was secured, and by 651, Khorasan was taken. The same year, the last Sassanid king was found while on the run and executed. Within a decade, the Muslim army had pushed from Iraq to the river Oxus, reaching the edges of the Central Asia. For Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, leading a rapid military expansion like Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not result in the same popularity as the second Caliph. Trouble began to fester a discontent with his administrative policy, particularly his appointment of fellow Umayyads began to take shape. Coupled with this, the slowing conquest in comparison to the Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's rapid expansion meant less booty made its way into Medina, resulting in economic stagnation. Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's popularity was certainly not as high as his two predecessors, but it would be a stretch to assume a massive revolution was brewing that would remove him from power. Instead, it was a small band of soldiers who would bring violent and chaotic changes to the Madani's government. In 656, a group of soldiers from Egypt came to Medina to protest directly to the Caliph regarding his policies and the divisions of spoils between the army and the civil government in Egypt. He listened to both sides of the dispute and promised to take steps to solve the problems equitably. On their return to Egypt, the soldiers intercepted a letter supposedly written by the Caliph to the governor of Egypt ordering their execution. They returned to Medina and besieged Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu in his own house. Despite the mortal danger he was in, Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu refused to order that the people of Medina arm themselves and fight the rebels, and even prevented his cousin Muawiyah from sending a force from Syria to protect him, lest blood be shed in the city of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Many of the remaining companions of Muhammad, peace be upon him, opposed his mutiny, but were powerless to stop it. So martial law reigned in Medina, and its residents could only watch in horror as the rebels eventually forced their way into Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's house and murdered him as he sat reading his copy of the Quran. The Caliph was dead, and with him so was the unity of the Muslim world.